I can't help but cringe and chuckle at the memory of my college disaster. It's a story that still makes me shake my head in disbelief at my own audacity and naivety. But it's also a tale that taught me one of the most valuable lessons of my young adult life. Honesty is always the best policy, especially when it comes to dating. It all started in my freshman year of college. I was a wide-eyed, eager-to-impress 18-year-old, thrust into the exciting and overwhelming world of campus life. Among the sea of new faces in my dorm, one stood out like a beacon: Lynn. She was everything I thought I wanted in a girl: beautiful, smart, and way out of my league. From the moment I saw her, I was smitten. For weeks, I tried to catch her attention. I'd linger in the common room when I knew she'd be there, hoping to strike up a conversation. I'd offer to help her with her books when I saw her in the hallway. But nothing seemed to work. Lynn was polite, but distant, clearly not interested in the awkward, trying too hard freshman that I was. Then came the fateful day that set my ill-conceived plan in motion. I overheard Lynn talking to her friends in the common room. They were discussing their favorite types of guys, and Lynn mentioned how much she loved guitarists. Her eyes lit up as she talked about how attractive it was to see a guy lost in the music, fingers dancing across the strings. It was like a light bulb went off in my head. This was it, my chance to finally impress her. There was just one tiny problem: I had never played a guitar in my life. The closest I'd come to making music was playing the recorder in elementary school, and even then, I was relegated to the back row during performances. But in my lovesick mind, this minor detail wasn't going to stop me. I spent the next few days hatching my plan. I borrowed an acoustic guitar from a guy down the hall, promising to return it in perfect condition. I spent hours on YouTube, watching Learn Guitar Fast videos and trying to memorize the fingerings for a few basic chords. I practiced holding the guitar, trying to look natural and confident. In my deluded state, I genuinely believed I could pull this off. With the guitar in hand and a few chords somewhat memorized, I put the next phase of my plan into action. I casually mentioned to Lynn that I played guitar, watching her eyes light up with interest. Emboldened by her reaction, I invited her to come by my room later to hear me practice. To my surprise and delight, she agreed. As the appointed time approached, my confidence began to waver. What had seemed like a brilliant plan now felt like a ticking time bomb. But it was too late to back out. I had committed to this charade, and I was going to see it through. Lynn arrived right on time, looking beautiful and excited to hear me play. I tried to appear casual as I picked up the guitar, praying that my hands wouldn't shake too visibly. With a deep breath, I launched into my practice session. The moment my fingers touched the strings, I knew I was in trouble. The sound that came out of the guitar was nothing like the smooth, melodic tones I had imagined. Instead, it was a cacophony of discordant notes, more akin to a cat being strangled than anything resembling music. I tried to mask my panic with a confident smile, but I could feel sweat beading on my forehead. Lynn, bless her heart, tried to be polite. She smiled encouragingly, but I could see the confusion and then the realization dawning in her eyes. As I fumbled through what I thought was a G chord, but was probably closer to a Z chord if such a thing existed, I saw her wince. She tried to hide it, but it was unmistakable. I kept at it, thinking that if I just pushed through, I might stumble upon something that sounded vaguely musical. But with each passing minute, the situation became more excruciating. Lynn shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her polite smile becoming more strained. After what felt like an eternity but was probably only about 5 minutes, Lynn made an excuse about forgetting a study group meeting. The relief in her voice was palpable as she hurriedly thanked me for the performance and practically bolted from the room. As the door closed behind her, I sat there, still holding the guitar, feeling a mix of embarrassment, shame, and an odd urge to laugh at the absurdity of the situation. I had just made a complete fool of myself in front of the girl I was trying to impress. And for what? A misguided attempt to appear cooler than I actually was. But my humiliation wasn't over yet. Word of my disastrous performance spread through the dorm like wildfire. By the next day, it seemed like everyone knew about the freshman who had pretended to be a guitarist to impress a girl. I became known as the fake guitarist, a nickname that would follow me for the rest of my college years. People would strum imaginary guitars when they saw me in the hallways. Some would ask me to play at parties, their voices dripping with sarcasm. Even my friends couldn't resist teasing me about it. What had started as an attempt to become cool had backfired spectacularly, cementing my status as the dorm's resident fool. The worst part was facing Lynn after the incident. When I ran into her in the common room a few days later, the awkwardness was palpable. She was kind enough not to mention my failed musical endeavor, but the pitying look in her eyes was almost worse than outright mockery. Any chance I might have had with her had evaporated the moment I strummed that first off-key chord. As the weeks went by and the teasing continued, I had a lot of time to reflect on what had led me to such a ridiculous decision. I realized that my desperation to impress Lynn had blinded me to the most important thing, being true to myself. In trying to be someone I wasn't, I had not only embarrassed myself but had also lost any chance of forming a genuine connection with her. This realization was the silver lining of my humiliating experience. It taught me the invaluable lesson that honesty is crucial in dating and in life. Pretending to be someone you're not might seem like a shortcut to impressing others, but it ultimately leads to disaster. People can sense inauthenticity, and it's far more unattractive than any perceived shortcomings you might have. As I navigated the rest of my college years, I carried this lesson with me. I learned to embrace my true self, quirks and all. I focused on developing genuine interests and skills rather than trying to mold myself into what I thought others wanted. And you know what? It worked. As I became more comfortable in my own skin, I found that people were drawn to my authenticity. Ironically, my guitar fiasco also sparked a genuine interest in music. A few months after the incident, still smarting from the embarrassment, I decided to actually learn to play. I signed up for lessons at the student center and dedicated myself to practicing. It wasn't easy, and there were many frustrating moments when I was tempted to give up. But I persevered, driven by a desire to transform my biggest embarrassment into a real skill. By my junior year, I could actually play decently. I wasn't going to be headlining any concerts, but I could strum out a few songs around a campfire. The first time I played publicly at a dorm gathering, I saw the surprise on people's faces. The fake guitarist had become a real one. It was a small victory, but it felt huge to me. This journey from fakery to authenticity affected all aspects of my life, especially my approach to dating. I stopped trying to be what I thought girls wanted and instead focused on being the best version of myself. I was honest about my interests, my flaws, and my aspirations. And while it didn't immediately lead to a string of successful relationships, it did help me form more genuine connections with people. Looking back now, I'm almost grateful for that mortifying experience with Lynn. Yes, it was painful and embarrassing at the time, but it taught me a lesson that has served me well in all areas of life. Authenticity is attractive, and honesty is always the best policy. It's better to be genuinely awkward than smoothly fake. As for Lynn, we eventually became friends later in college. One night, over coffee, she admitted that while my guitar stunt had been cringeworthy, she had appreciated my effort to impress her. We laughed about it together, the sting of embarrassment long faded. She even came to one of my real guitar performances years later, cheering me on as I played a song I had written myself. Today, whenever I pick up my guitar, I'm reminded of that freshman year disaster. But instead of cringing, I smile. It's a reminder of how far I've come, not just in my musical abilities, but in my personal growth. That misguided attempt to impress a girl led me to one of the most important realizations of my life. The most impressive thing you can be is yourself. So to anyone out there considering faking a skill to impress someone, take it from me, don't. The momentary gain isn't worth the potential embarrassment, and more importantly, it robs you of the chance to form a genuine connection. Be honest, be yourself, and the right people will appreciate you for who you truly are. And who knows? Your biggest embarrassment might just lead you to discover a genuine passion. In my case, it led to a lifelong love of music and a valuable life lesson. Not a bad outcome for a spectacularly failed attempt at coolness.